see you guys in the dark.
A couple of years ago, I was home alone. At the time, I was still living with my family, but they had gone on vacation, and thus I had the house to myself. Well, I had been working a lot of hours that week, and it was my day off. So naturally, I called the boys for some cold ones. Cold ones were drank, and about 11 p.m. everyone decided to go home. Drunk and tired, I locked my doors and went upstairs to my room and knocked out cold, until I woke up from the ding-dong of my doorbell. It was about 4 a.m., if I can recall correctly. Needless to say, I was still kind of drunk. For a few seconds, I asked myself what the fuck, not sure if I actually heard my doorbell, or if it was just my imagination. So I waited, and then I heard it again. I got up groggy, and went to my hallway and yelled, "I'll be right there." I headed downstairs. As I made my way down, I panicked. What if one of my friends got in a crash, or never made it home? They weren't drunk like I was when they left, but still, you never know. Or maybe I thought it was one of them returning for something. As I got to the door, I stupidly, something I'd never do sober due to it being so late, opened the door. It was my ex. Just for some quick background, me and my ex didn't end on good terms. We dated for years. She cheated. I was heartbroken. We went back and forth. And it took me about 1.5 years to get over her. Mainly by blocking her on my number. All social media, and even email. Yes, she even contacted me through that. To put it kindly, she filled the crazy stereotype. Plus, it had been maybe 3 months since I finally cut her off, so needless to say, I was confused. When I opened the door, just said hi, in my shy manner. Confused, I asked, "What are you doing here, Jenny?" She just said, "I wanted to see you, and talk a little bit." So then I said, "You know what time it is, right?" She said, "I know, it's late, but I'm on my way to school, and wanted to stop by. Since it's on the way, I knew you'd be home alone." Now this definitely weirded me out, because how the fuck did she know that? My family wasn't in contact as far as I knew, and I had family block her off on their own social media. So I asked her, "How do you know that?" And she said, "Oh, I just know." We kind of paused, and she asked me to come in to talk. Stupidly, I told her okay. After coming in, she pet my dogs, and we went to my living room and sat down. We talked about how we were both doing, and then what I expected. She basically begged me to take her back. I said no. She began to cry, and so did I. Well, one thing led to another, and then to my room, and you can imagine what occurred. Guilty and regretful as soon as we finished, I made an excuse that I had to work the next day. She pleaded me to let her stay, and I kept saying no, to which she began screaming at me for using her, to which I replied some mean things and kicked her out. So that was that, right? Wrong. After about 20 minutes, I had returned to my room until I heard pounding on my door. Instantly, I knew who it was, and went down to open the door. It was my ex. She came inside without even asking. She looked flustered, like she had been jogging or something, and definitely still looked pretty angry. But there was one thing, my gut feeling, and it was telling me something was definitely off. When she came in, I had noticed that one of my dogs, I have 2, began to make low growling noises at her. This never occurs since they've known her for years and liked her. I noticed it, but I kept my cool. I asked her, "What do you want?" I said, "You have to leave." She just looked at me with those piercing eyes and said it in a shaking voice. "Why do you always do this? Why can't you just, ugh?" She got closer to me. At the same time, keep in mind she was wearing a zip-up hoodie with 2 pockets on each side. She had her right hand free, but her other hand was in her pocket. I wasn't 100% sure, but I could tell she was gripping something. My mind raced and thought, fuck, am I about to get stabbed to death by my ex and not be found until my family comes back? Almost on cue after thinking this, My second dog, let's call her Ash, began to bark like crazy at her. Ash is a weird dog. She is a lazy dog, and she rarely ever barks, especially at people. So this, on top of my ex giving me this weird feeling, actually made me a little scared. To which I then told my Jenny, "Look, I'm sorry what happened was a mistake, but I have work, and you have to leave." This lit the fuse. She went ballistic. I'm talking spit in my face and strained red eyes yelling. To be honest, I can't remember what she had yelled about, but it probably wasn't good. The entire time of her rant, she never took her hand out of her pocket, and then she finally calmed down, just stood there inches from my face, breathing heavily. Dog still barking at her the entire time. The look on her face is that one can tell someone wants to do or say something, but they're just holding back from doing what they really want to do, like a threat of mental power. Personally, I didn't want to find out what was in her pocket or what she wanted to do. So annoyed and very much worried after this verbal onslaught, I just told her simply, "Get the fuck out, or I'm calling the cops." Angrily, she paused and said, "You'll regret this," and then left. So I locked my doors, went straight to my room, and looked out the window for the next couple of hours. She didn't come back. Since that day, I haven't seen or talked to my ex. Not sure if I was being paranoid or if I was really about to regret letting her in. So to my ex, let's not meet. Ever again. There was this girl I reluctantly dated for 2 weeks. I ended up because she was constantly messaging me and got mad when I didn't message her when I was on bloody holiday. Even after I broke up with her, she would be mad when I didn't respond to her texts. Now, you see, I go to this tabletop gaming store every Friday in town. It's about 45-minute drive from where I live. She goes there too on the same day and time. Anyway, she kept being continuously flirtatious and even went to kiss me when we were there. Eventually, I had found someone I was genuinely romantically interested in. I told her because she was still my best friend at the time, despite the whole drama thing. This is where the fun begins. So, in the 2 weeks we were dating, she would constantly attention seek from me about her mental illness, such as depression and anxiety. Not that I don't believe she had a mental illness, just not one of the two. And she would self-harm and talk about suicide. I was obviously quite upset at this, and it continued into our relationship. Anyways, we were at the store, and I told her I was interested in another girl. The second I was interested in another girl, she started crying and hitting me. Went inside the store to get her car keys, and ran out to her car while I just stood there shocked. I went back inside the store to talk to mates and to do some painting. Then she comes back, completely stone-faced, and hands me a note. She did it in a way that made her new, fresh cuts extremely visible. I took the note and put it in my bag without even making eye contact at her. I was disgusted that she would even try and get my attention this way. I don't talk to her for the rest of the night. And at around 11 p.m., I head home, get inside, and read the note. It was a suicide note where she was saying she was sorry. She's going because some bitch stole me from her. We stopped dating 3 months ago. Then I got a message on my Snapchat 2 minutes after reading it. It's a nude caption. "Won't you stay just for this?" She isn't even that attractive. I say no, and then she starts saying that she's actually going to do it. She doesn't talk to me for months. The girl I had left her for and I didn't work out. No biggie. Part of it was emotional strain from me thinking a poor young lass was dead because of me. It was about 2 months into the relationship. I am now with my loving girlfriend. A year and a half together now. Me and my girlfriend were lying in bed, playing Mortal Kombat X on my PlayStation, when I get a call from an unknown number. I answer it. She says that she's just regained consciousness, and I ask, "Who is this?" She responds with her name, and it sends chills down my spine. I say okay, and just hang up. I call all hospitals near where she lived, and they said they haven't had any patients with that name. I text her, "Quit your bullshit," and block her. She gets another number and texts me again. I block it. The cycle still goes on, just slowing down now. The most recent message being, "Have you broken up with your girlfriend yet? Nudes for nudes?" Recently, I saw her looking around outside my house. I opened the window and told her to piss off. "Audrey, if you haven't killed yourself again, let's not meet again."
This is a long one and just downright sad, but I guess I will start at the beginning. I should mention, however, that I am into BDSM. I am a submissive, and I was looking for a mistress. I would go on websites posting my email address and other messaging app contact information. As well as you may have guessed, it was a bad idea. In a couple of weeks, I got an email. I no longer remember her name, but I will call her mistress. She told me just what I wanted to hear. She drew a contract together stating the rules I must follow. One rule that for some reason I still remember is that she could not allow me to mop the floors. Now I see that it was to make her character more believable. But the contract told me how to talk to her as in certain responses, and that I could not ask questions, and other ways of respecting her. I was young, and I was just a hormone-raging teenager, and this was turning me on big time. She would give me tasks to do, and I would do them happily, so I signed to this contract. Boom, I got myself a dominatrix girlfriend, or so I thought. Over the course of about 2 weeks, we talked daily. Only through text, however. We never met or called. She showed me a picture of herself, but now I realize it was obviously fake. But she gained my trust, nonetheless. I learned that she would buy jewelry for cheap in Dubai to sell it here in the US to make a large profit. She told me that she traveled and rarely was ever home, but that her home had a dungeon. She told me that I can come and visit her sometime very soon. This made me really excited whenever she brought this up. I was infatuated with what she was doing to me. The way she talked was exactly what I wanted to hear, coming from a dominatrix. After about 2 or 3 weeks after we met, she told me that her shipment of jewelry was being held up in Dubai, and that she needed to get out of there and figure it out. It was no big deal to me, as I am not allowed to ask questions. Her plane was to leave that night. A couple of days passed and nothing. Then I got a text. She was asking me to do her a favor. A big favor. She told me that she was in trouble. She didn't get the shipment figured out, and now she just wanted to come back home. However, she had to pay $3,000 to get out of the country. I didn't even think about who she had to pay. I just believed her. She needed me, and I was going to be her hero. Blinded by lust and love, I listened and read her text message. It went something like this. She needed me to do this. Don't ask any questions. Just obey her. And if I did just that, I could come live with her in her big house, and she would buy me a new car. This is important. She had $3,000 in a bank account, but she could not access it since she was out of the country. Although she did know the routing and accounting numbers. She needed mine so she could send it to my bank account, and that I will then take it out and go to 3 different Walmarts to use their MoneyGram transferring service. Mistress said to use 3 different Walmarts because they had a money transfer cap. I recall hesitating on this. A red flag finally went off in my head, but I brushed it off and gave the numbers to her. Mistress then told me it would take a couple of days for the money to get to my account. But she needed money now to buy food since she couldn't use her debit card there. She asked me for $300. I sent it to her using MoneyGram. Then she did the same the next day. I was more hesitant at this point, but she spun a story about how she had to sell her phone and buy a crappier one just to make do. So I sent her another $250 using the same method. Finally, the day came that the $3,000 was now in my account. I told her, and immediately she responds with the same method for transferring it all. Well, after work that day, I went to my bank and took it out. I remember being so amazed that I had $3,000 freaking dollars in my hand. I thought of ghosting her and just taking it. But then I wouldn't have a dominatrix girlfriend, and it took a long time to find me one. So I went to 3 different Walmarts and did my business. At least I kept the receipts. This is where it gets sad. I was living with my sister and her boyfriend at the time, and I had not told them about anything that I had been doing. It was late, and we were all smoking cigarettes on the porch. A small argument came out, and I abruptly announced that I was moving out anyways. They both looked at me in shock, and my sister started to cry, very hard. We rarely ever fought, and this wasn't even a big fight, and now she is losing me. I felt awful, and told them both the whole story. From the nature of our relationship to paying her own way, they were surprised and really didn't talk much about it. Well, we all went to bed then, since it was tense, and I worked early the next morning. I woke up and drove to work. As I parked, I get a call. It's my bank, telling me how there was a suspicious activity and I needed to come in and meet with them. I was confused at this. I didn't understand how that was possible. After the call, it was about 10 minutes, and my dad calls me. Since his name was on the account as well, the bank even called him. He asked if I had anything to tell him. I broke down. I confessed what I had been doing to the last detail. He didn't say much, but that he will go to the bank after my shift. God, that shift was awful. My anxiety was through the roof. Now at the meeting, I again had to recount the whole thing for a 3rd time in less than a day. The bank person told me that I was the victim of a romance scam, and that I should take what I have left in my account and close it right away. I did just what they told me. But before I told her how wrong she is, and that she wouldn't have since she had the contract, she really didn't give a shit about what I said. All through this, I never heard from Mistress, and now I had to go back home and tell my sister what was happening. I cried, and she forgave me and hugged me. I felt so awful. The next day, my dad calls me saying the bank wants us to pay them the $3,000. My dad and I decided to get a free consultation from a lawyer. He told us not to pay the bank and sue them, saying I didn't benefit at all from the scam. I had the receipts to even prove it. I went to the bank and showed them the receipts, and they still demanded the money. So my dad just paid them. I couldn't thank him enough for this. I really couldn't. He was my hero and took a major stress off my hands. I still had to pay him back, but obviously not right away. He really was there for me when I needed him the most. Later that night, Mistress texted me. She said she was back in the U.S. and was going to visit me and take me back to her place in 2 days. I remember messaging her back. I said, "You got what you wanted already. Why are you talking to me still?" She never responded. This story has no good ending at all. That was it. No justice that I know of. She probably wasn't even a woman. But to Mistress, I'm glad we never met, otherwise I'd be in jail for murder. You broke my heart, and definitely my bank account. My husband dated a beauty queen title holder, whom he broke up with long before we ever met. However, I was the first serious girlfriend, now his wife, that he dated after her, and once she knew about me, our lives became a nightmare for a while. I guess she always figured he would go back to her because she was so beautiful. On top of being crazy, she was also a narcissist. Anyway, we start dating, and the phone calls start. She would call over and over at all hours of the night, forcing my husband to switch off his phone. So it escalated. I started getting flat tires on my car. Then random dents in the car appeared. I had no proof this was her, of course, but it seemed too coincidental. She then started calling and threatening my husband that if he doesn't give her money, She would call the police and report him that he used to abuse her. My husband was worried because, while he wasn't guilty of anything, it would be her word against his, and his reputation would definitely be ruined. She approached me at a party when I came out of the bathroom. Ambushed me is more like it. "Where is your man? You should keep an eye on your man," she slurred in her heavy accent. It was intimidating because she is over 6 feet tall, and I'm only 5'5". And in heels, she's about 6'5". No joke. She towered over me. I ignored her and I walked away, but yet she followed me, not saying anything, just kept up the pace and walked beside me, sort of bending forward to be more on eye level with me, looking straight at me with wide, crazy eyes, but walking, grinning maniacally. She was like a parody of herself. After that, we stopped going to events if we had any inkling that she would be there. However, we did attend a funeral for a mutual friend. At the reception, I was talking to a couple I knew, and she just walked right up to me and stood with us. She stood there as if part of the conversation, not talking, just standing there listening to our intimate group of 3. Completely crazy, I might add. I did not want to cause a scene at a funeral, so I walked back to my husband, who had been talking to the man's widow. That was the final straw. We got a lawyer who sent her a cease and desist. It didn't faze her, though. She would call my husband from private numbers and say, "Hi there, it's me," in a sing-song voice like nothing had happened. 3 cease and desist letters later, she was still calling. We were finally able to get a restraining order. I used to be so intimidated by her. She was tall, blonde, and statuesque. The epitome of a beauty queen. However, as I got to realize who she was, I realized she was the ugliest person I had ever met. When I see a picture of her, all I see are mean, cold eyes. I don't see any beauty whatsoever. I used to think about beauty pageants were more than just skin deep, that contests were judged for more than their looks. In this case, how wrong was I? I also found out we were not the only ones who had to take a restraining order out against her. We haven't seen her in years, although we still to this day continuously get fake Instagram follower requests that I know are her. I know this because she is dumb enough to always have herself as a follower, or her brother, or follow random people in our lives. My husband's colleagues, my mom, who lives in a different city, etc. I don't know why she won't let go. My husband and I have a baby now, and I'm always vigilant. I truly don't know what she is capable of. She once had the world at her feet, and a platform that would have given her opportunities the rest of us might not ever have. But she just wanted money with the minimal work. She cheated people and used them. Last I heard, she became an escort and now lives in a shelter. Clearly, there are mental issues at play here, but she was a terrible, opportunist person long before that. Crazy, beautiful Queen X from hell. Let's not meet again, for both of our sakes. A few years ago, I was a naive 13-year-old girl. My friends and I used to go to Omegle when we would get together for shits and giggles. One time, when we got together, there was a very attractive guy on there. On Omegle, you don't really tend to find attractive people, so we took the opportunity to continue our conversation with him. At the time, Alex from Target was in the media, and this guy looked exactly like Alex from Target, and we were poking fun at him, and he was poking fun at it as well. He told us he was 17. We all added him on Snapchat and Instagram, and we all had genuine conversations with him. He was a nice enough guy, but eventually, all of my friends had blocked him due to him posting that he was finally 20 and sending a photo of an inappropriate selfie of him covering his package to a few of my friends. I didn't block him. As a kid, I had a blind spot for older men who gave me attention. I was an insecure teenager with braces that had just been put on, curly hair, and glasses. It was nice for someone to give me attention. I enjoyed talking to him. We spoke over the next few months, and all seemed pretty normal. Nothing inappropriate was ever discussed between the two of us. He hadn't even sent that picture he sent to my friends to me. Luckily, I was smart enough to lie about my age and where I lived. However, we did talk about meeting up almost jokingly, but this was no way in a relationship. He didn't lie about the state he lived in, and the state I told him I lived in wasn't far from him. But I don't even live in the USA. We spoke for a few months, and then our lives went on. But we did catch up every now and then. After a while, my friends and I pretty much forgot about him. For the record, Omegle is a dangerous place, and if you do choose to go on there, please do not give any of your social media to anybody on there. I was fortunate enough to not have anything happen to me by doing that, but I was a stupid kid then, and didn't realize the dangers behind doing that. Then about 2 years ago, one of my friends brought him up, and we wondered what he was up to. I went to his Instagram to see that he hasn't posted anything in almost a full year, and the comments on his post were very strange. People were commenting stuff like they missed him, that this wasn't fair, that he did nothing wrong, etc. It was strange, and I got curious, and went to Facebook to see if he had posted anything on there. The second I entered his name into the search bar, a bunch of articles popped up saying that a man with his name had been sentenced to 25 years in prison for doing horrible things to teenage girls. I was shocked. When I saw his mugshot, I knew it was 100% him. Basically, the story goes that about a month before we had met him on Omegle, he did awful things to a 13-year-old girl. Then a month later, literally days after he had sent a few of my friends that inappropriate photo of himself, he picked up that same girl and a friend of hers. He took them to an apartment and forced alcohol down their throats. He forced them to perform what was described as sexual acts to each other while he recorded it on his cell phone, then did horrible things to them afterwards. Thankfully, he had been charged a few months later. I was disgusted, but the story doesn't end there. About a year ago, I received a DM from a girl who asked me if I was talking to him. I asked her how she found me, and she said I commented on one of his pictures. I commented on one of his pictures over a year earlier before I knew any of this information, and had completely forgotten doing so. Long story short, she told me she was his girlfriend, and saying stuff like, "He's mine." I had asked her if she had knew he was in jail, and she said obviously yes. I even asked her if they were dating before he went to jail, and she told me no. She then told me to leave her alone and worry about myself, even though she was the one who had messaged me. She had requested to follow me, and I denied it. But over the next few weeks, she kept on requesting me, and I had eventually blocked her, especially after I saw that she had changed her profile picture, which was of her and him, and he was wearing prison clothing. So, Alex from Target lookalike, and your girlfriend? Let's not meet. Ever.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.